Hi, my name is Christina Rilo, and I'm the founder of the Path of Self-Love School. And I'm inviting you today to join me for a conversation of transformation about what the heck do we do about the self-sabotaging habit of overwhelm. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. If you are like any of the people I know in this world right now, you're probably feeling overwhelmed a lot. And what you might not know is that overwhelm is actually one of the 33 self-sabotaging habits that are rooted in a lack of self-love or a weak self-love. You see, overwhelm comes from when you overgive and you overdo and you overwork and you overcompensate and you overcare and you overempathize. Are you getting the over? Yes, and so you give too much away and you don't receive enough. So you become like a bank who's only giving withdrawals and not taking in enough deposits, which makes you feel bankrupt physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, because you are. This is one of the biggest self-sabotaging habits we have at this time on our planet, because we've been programmed in here to believe that in order to be a good person, we have to give. You know that saying, it's better to give than receive? Well, at the Path of Self-Love, one of the biggest reprogrammings that we work with here is changing that one word, it's better to give than receive, to it's better to give and receive. And so just put your hands out in front of you for a moment. And just imagine on this side, go ahead and put your left hand out, that this is your receiving hand. And that you are open to receiving as much as you need, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and that you're actively bringing in those deposits. And then this gets to get filled up, and then from that place, you give. That is how we get ourselves out of overwhelm. This is the thing is that I'm going to share with you right now, do this series of self-sabotaging habits and transforming them into self-loving and self-empowering actions here at the Path of Self-Love School to give you some real tangible ways that you can really transform these self-sabotaging habits that so many of us are experiencing. And so the thing I wanted you to know about overwhelm, A, it's not your fault. B, we're all experiencing it. C, so many of us are trying to do too much, do too many things at once, and we're operating on these old programs that are connected to self-sacrifice and giving and giving and giving and giving until there's nothing else left. And that is a lack of self-love. And so what I'm going to do for you now in this video specifically is share with you something, a specific self-love practice that you can do in the moment when you hit overwhelm. You see, self-love is a practice, it is a path, and it is a choice. And one of the things that I've done over the last 10, 15 years, depending on when you count, is really create practices that can help you in the moment shift that self-sabotaging habit into a self-loving, self-supportive, self-supporting, empowering action. That's the practice of self-love. And then we also really choose to strengthen that deep inner foundation so that you don't have to wait until the moments of overwhelm hit you. You don't have to wait until the swirl swooshes you over on a consistent daily basis. Just like if you were training for a marathon, you wouldn't start training the day before. You actually strengthen this inner piece as well. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to share with you a practice you can use in the moment when the overwhelm hits to go from making a self-sabotaging thought or choice or action, because when you're in overwhelm, the truth is your parasympathetic nervous system is not working. Your sympathetic nervous system, which is the one of fight or flight, is making your thoughts, choosing your actions to go forward, and that's when you end up sabotaging yourself. And to get out of overwhelm so that you can actually make a choice, a self-loving, empowering choice that comes from your center, you actually have to slow it down. And then we'll end today's video in this very short but mighty teaching session with a love mantra, a self-love mantra that you can use to start actually every day strengthening your self-love and your capacity to not actually get into overwhelm in the first place. You ready? Okay, let's go. Okay, self-sabotaging habit. Overwhelmed. We've got that, right? Now, in the moment when you're feeling overwhelmed, here is your self-love antidote. I'm going to give you 3 words. If you have a pen and paper, you can write this down. If not, just say it along with me. All right, here's what we do. This is the practice. Stop, drop, and reset. Now, the first part of this, that's interesting. It'll look a little bit like I've been in Overwhelm from that writing, doesn't it? It's not exactly straight, but you get the gist. In order to actually even begin this practice of getting out of overwhelm, you have to realize that you're in overwhelm. And so one of the biggest questions we get at the Path to Self-Love School is, how do I even know when I'm in overwhelm? And the answer is your body. Your body will always tell you. So the self-loving action is, first of all, get to know what your body feels like when you are in overwhelm, because what the first thing is what you want to do is you want to, boom, hit the stop button and stop everything that you're actually doing. You have to hit the pause button. So some ways that overwhelm might feel for you. See which one of these resonate for you, and you might even think of a situation recently that you were in which you felt overwhelmed. Or maybe you feel overwhelmed while you're watching this with me right now. So it can feel like anxiety. It can be like your words start to speed up and you get faster and faster and faster and faster. It can feel like contraction. It can feel like stress in your shoulder blades. I used to get it all the time in my jaw, that TMJ. You can feel spinny in the head. It can be like you're searching for answers. You feel like you're just moving, and you haven't stopped. Everything speeds up when you're in overwhelm. So take a breath with me. In order to get out of overwhelm, you have to slow down. And this is an absolutely self-loving action. So first, you press stop. And you say to yourself, honey, you're in overwhelm. Pressing stop. And you know it because you feel it in your body. It's the thing about self-love. It's not up here in our minds. It's embodied, it's felt, and it's a choice. So you press stop. Whenever you feel that, you just press stop. And you can just go ahead, press stop right now. Like put your hand out and just press the pause button like you were hitting a pause button on your phone. I would say a VCR, but they don't really have those anymore. But you're pressing that pause button. And then you drop. Drop everything. Drop the thoughts that you're having, drop whatever you're doing, drop whatever relationship or situation you might be having, and just drop it. Because if you respond and you react to that, whether it's a relationship, a conversation you're having, or a project that you're working on, you're just going to create from the frenzy up here. And that's going to create more overwhelm. So the thing about self-love and why it's so challenging is that it's not that you don't know how to take care of yourself. It's not that you don't know how to make wise choices. It's when you're in the fear, the shame, the blame, the overwhelm that's caused from all of those things, you can't make a choice from that centered place. So you just got to drop it and walk away. That gives you the ability to reset because you're bringing everything inside yourself. And so just take your hands out like that with me for a second. So we've pressed pause, you've dropped it, and then just bring in your hands like this. You're just bringing everything into yourself. I'm going to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And this is how a reset works. Now, this is not just woo-woo, weird, whatever you want to say. This is actually backed up by science. It's backed up by yogic science. This is about releasing the overwhelm and resetting your nervous system. So just close your eyes, and you have to close your eyes to do this reset. Take your hand on your heart, which connects to that center of self. Put one hand on your belly. This really connects to you feeling grounded and rooted, so you're not just like a windsock blowing around in the wind. And just take 3 deep exhales out and inhales in. So it's an inhale in. Exhale out. With that first inhale, just imagine just dropping a cord right down into the center of the earth. Really feel your legs and stand up here with me. And taking another deep breath in. And imagine if you were breathing in the sun, the light, the universe just here with you. So you're not all on your own through this. And then exhale. Maybe even move your neck around a little. And then one last inhale, this one into your heart. Into your heart, just breathing in this love you have for yourself, this commitment to yourself. And then exhaling out any of the emotion that's yours, it's got you swirling. And I'm going to invite you to ask yourself a question. The question is, what do I need to receive in this moment? What do I need? And so ask yourself, what do I need to receive right now? Really allow that inner wisdom to guide you. Feel it in your body. Feel yourself opening up to something that's more infinite and intelligent than you. And if you haven't been speaking to your inner wisdom, honey, it's like a best friend. It might not be talking to you right now. Some of you might hear it. Some of you might feel it. And if you don't get anything, that's okay. Just make something up. What would you love to receive right now? It's never a 7-day trip to Tahiti. It's always like a peace, a walk, something to drink. So what you're doing in this moment, and the way we get out of overwhelm, is this is a very specific self-care practice where you ask yourself, what do I need to receive? And once you get that, then you can move into action and say, okay, now let me go back to that relationship. Okay, now let me go back to that project. Okay, now let me go back to that situation. And you will respond from the centered place with that receiving filled up versus responding or reacting from a place of lack, from that place where you've given too much away and you're just exhausted. That's the practice in the moment. I'm going to come back here and sit down with you for a second. So that's the emergency care. And you can come back at any time and watch this very short but mighty practice with me if you need, and you're in overwhelm, if you need some help pressing the pause button, because I know sometimes it can be hard to do it yourself. But what I just shared with you is a very simple technique. It's hard to do it in the moment unless you start practicing it and you start to get that knowing that it's actually going to happen. And that's what we talk about when we talk about strengthening your inner foundation. So I'm going to leave you today with a love mantra. One of the things that we do at the Path of Self-Love School is we teach people practices. We teach them how to, on a daily basis, really strengthen that inner foundation so that you don't have to wait until the overwhelm hits so that you're already in the swirl. You got to train for this every day. So a very simple practice, and we do this whenever we're strengthening our branch of self-care in our Self-Love Foundations class. We teach, ask yourself every morning, hand on your heart, hand on your belly, just ask yourself what you need to receive that day and make it part of your morning practice. And then whenever you find yourself in overwhelm, stop, drop, and listen to your heart. The answers are waiting inside. But if you're not connected to yourself, it's going to be really hard in order to do this. So part of self-love is really developing that relationship with your heart. And if you don't know how to do that, join us at the Path of Self-Love School. We always have great programs running. You just go to pathofselflove.org, and there's lots of great programs that we're running. We're a Path of Self-Love School. That's our job. Happy to help you create that inner strong foundation. And for now, sending you off with much, much love. Overwhelm. See you later.